Hello and welcome to Sci-Fi-Night Light, the different segment of a show which is just basically my opportunity to talk about random topics that somehow relate to sci-fi and horror. So, as many of you already know, the great Leonard Nemoy passed away last week at the age of 83. This was a huge loss not only for sci-fi fans, but for cinema and television in general as well. Nemoy was of course famous and beloved for his role as Vulcan Spock in Star Trek.
Thank heaven.
Mr. Scott, there was no deity involved. It was my cross-circuiting to be that recovered them.
A role that I hold very dear to my heart, actually. Why is that? Well, Spock is widely regarded as the very first vegan ever to be depicted on TV. Being a vegan sci-fi fan myself, I kind of identified with Spock in his message of non-violence, and his saying, "It is illogical to kill without reason."
Please pay no attention, I'm not myself. I'm behaving disgracefully. I have eaten animal flesh and I've enjoyed it. What is wrong with me?
If only more of us humans could live by that message. As a huge Spock and Nimoy fan, I want to dedicate this episode to him. However, since we focus on lesser known stuff on this show, we're gonna leave most of the Spock stuff out. After all, chances are if you're watching this, you're already pretty well aware of his role as a popular Star Trek character. So let's check out some of the stuff that you might not have seen before. One of the very first sci-fi flicks that Nimoy showed up in was in the 1952 film Zombies of a Stratosphere. The film had the following crazy plot. Invaders come to Earth to create an H-bomb to blast the Earth out of orbit so that Mars can take its place. Yeah, pretty crazy. 2 years later, he would show up in the 1950s classic Them as an uncredited army sergeant. Isn't that kind of weird that in this classic 1950s monster film, Spock was just kind of an uncredited guy in the background? Pretty weird, right? After doing a couple TV shows, he eventually played the role of Professor Cole in the 1958 film The Brain Eaters, a film about some kind of alien parasite that has infected a small town and taken control over the inhabitants. In 1961, Nimoy starred in an episode of The Twilight Zone. The sci-fi series didn't stop there though, as he also took part in two 1964 episodes of The Outer Limits.
Tell me something. You care so much about people. Why did you retire from the human race?
5 years later, he would be prominently featured in Mission Impossible, playing the character of Paris. Quite a few years later, in 1978, he would play another scientific figure as he played Dr. David Kibner in the remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which, looking back, has a plot that's kind of similar to the 1958 film The Brain Eaters. That's a weird coincidence, isn't it?
Most illogical reaction.
In 1986, almost 10 years later, Transformers the movie was released. Being a massive kick-ass film, it obviously featured quite a cool cast. One of those cool cats was Nemoy, who did the voice acting for Galvatron.
You understand you'll pay for this. No one defies my command and gets away with it.
In the 1994 animated film Page Master, Spock did the voice of both Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but got a criminally small role in the movie. Between 1993 and 1997, Nimoy was also featured in two very memorable episodes of The Simpsons.
Hello, I'm Leonard Nemoy.
First one being The Springfield Files, an episode which also featured David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson from The X-Files.
I'll ask you a few yes or no questions, and you just answer truthfully. Do you understand?
Yes.
The other episode was Marge vs. the Monorail, one of the very best Simpsons episodes ever, basically.
No, the world needs laughter.
Many nerds out there will instinctively think of the Civilization games as Nimoy did the narration for Civilization 4.
Artillery adds dignity to what would otherwise be a vulgar brawl.
A lesser-known fact is that he did even more voice acting in the 2009 Will Ferrell sci-fi comedy Land of the Lost, where he voiced the Zarn.
This is the Zarn. Heed my warning or be destroyed.
Spock would return to Transformers for the third Transformers live-action film where he did the voice for Sentinel Prime.
I will overlook your condescending tone if you heed the gravity of mine.
I'm just really glad that that was not the last film he did. No, the last film that he worked on was actually 2013's Star Trek Into Darkness, a film that I rather enjoyed.
Mr. Spock.
Mr. Spock.
So that does it for this tribute to Leonard Nimoy's lesser known roles, though of course there are plenty more. And by all means, let me know in the comments what your favorite non-Spock role was, or even if it is just Spock, just say so. As always, I'm your host, Sebastian Bell Martinez. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Nimoy as well as his family and loved ones. We'll see you guys next time, and always live long and prosper.